Chapter 1: Arranged Marriage, Why It Can Sometimes Work. From ancient tribal unions to marriage in the 21st century, society has been figuring out partnership for thousands of years. As long as people have been living, eating, trading, fighting, and procreating, a union between individuals has existed in one form or another. The fact that the human race lives on in perpetuity is solid proof. But the love marriage, the marriage that stems from those initial feelings of adulation and infatuation, and all too often the blatant disregards common sense, is relatively new. A long time ago, in a galaxy not so far away, marriage was a way of shoring up important alliances and expanding the family labor force. If you wanted to stay warm and ward off predators, 2 was better than 1, and a whole tribe was better than 2. It made sense to have 19 kids because you knew 8 were going to die, and the rest were going to be in the fields pulling up root vegetables for dinner. The more children you had, the better your chances of keeping the family alive and robust. Compare that to today, when kids are often parasitic creatures taking refuge in their parents' basements well into their adult years. Archaeologists have found evidence of formal marriage contracts dating back 4,000 years. Marriage from the beginning was strategic, a way of preserving power, procuring land, and producing heirs. Among the common folk, parents and relatives arranged matches to strengthen family ties, while kings and emperors married off their daughters to forge political alliances. Marriage was a union between 2 people that symbolized a much larger union between 2 families, tribes, or nations. Children often had little say in choosing a mate, daughter especially. In China, there were even ghost marriages where living girls were conjoined to deceased men as a goodwill gesture between clans. Being married to a corpse from a good family provided not only financial stability but a good deal of independence. These widows were treated respectfully as married women while enjoying the freedom to pursue their own interests. In other words, they maintained their wealth and reputation, but they didn't have to cook dumplings for their husband or pick up his dirty socks. It was win-win. For our ancestors, marriage was never about love or romance or sexual desire. It was about money, property, and preserving the family lineage. This led to some rather strange practices among friends. Long before Wife Swap was a popular TV show, the ancient Romans were practicing their own version of a marriage exchange. Take Cato, a powerful statesman who was looking for ways to strengthen ties with Hortensius, a well-known Roman orator. Hortensius was a wealthy man and a lover of good wine, an all-around decent guy. But this one regret in life was that he didn't have an heir. So Hortensius proposed that he marry Cato's daughter. Cato wanted to get in good with the orator, but marrying his 20-year-old daughter to his 60-year-old friend was a bit much. Instead, Cato agreed to divorce Marcia, his own wife, to make her legally available. Hortensius liked the idea. He swept in, married Marcia, and promptly got her pregnant, which gave him the heir he'd always wanted. In case you think Marcia got the short end of the stick, rest assured she made a tidy profit from this arrangement. When Hortensius died 6 years later, she inherited most of his considerable wealth, which included multiple villas and a handful of fish ponds. 1 year later, Marcia and her children moved back into Cato's household, where it is widely believed Cato remarried her. Now, I'm not calling Marcia a gold digger, but it's clear she did pretty well for herself and her kids. Historically speaking, marriage has always been a practical affair. So when did love start to win over practicality and financial prudence? Who's responsible for the shift to foolishness? For that, we have the Victorians to thank. In the late 1800s, people fell madly in love with the notion of romantic love. Love matches gained cultural currency, mutual attraction became a part of the equation for the first time in history. Young people shocked their parents by refusing to marry the Mr. or Ms. Wonderful to whom they were betrothed, running off instead to elope with Mr. or Ms. Morally questionable and officially bankrupt. Take the case of Alfred Gilbert, an English sculptor during the late 19th century. At 22, Alfred defied his parents and eloped to Paris with his cousin Alice, the so-called love of his life. It didn't end well. In under a decade, bankruptcy forced Alfred to flee the country, leaving Alice alone with their 5 children. She spent the rest of her life in a mental hospital. No storybook ending there. And maybe even a sign of things to come. Which brings us to the present. By the time the 20th century rolled around, love matches in the Western world were fast becoming the norm. Marriage moved out of the realm of arranged social contracts and into the realm of romance and sexual desire. You know what else skyrocketed around the same time? The divorce rate. It's no coincidence. Numerous studies have shown that, in every single society around the globe, as soon as a culture that is widely supportive of arranged marriage is replaced by a culture where individuals choose their own mates, divorce rates start to climb. It's happening right now in China, where the national divorce rate is steadily escalating. An estimated 2.87 million Chinese marriages ended in 2012. That's only 2.2%, but just 30 years ago the nation's divorce rate was 0.04%. That means out of 10,000 couples will split. Why is China experiencing this spike? One reason is that the country has recently introduced new, and simpler, divorce policies, making divorce a possibility whereas in the past it might not have been. But divorces aren't the only business on the rise. Young people are adopting new ways of dating and mating that are gradually chipping away at centuries of tradition. The Chinese online dating industry, for example, has really taken off. It is expected to break 2 billion renminbi, $328 million, in total annual revenue by 2014. Goodbye, matchmakers, hello, one-night stands. If you're like most Westerners I've met, the idea of arranged marriage makes you queasy. I don't want to be coerced into marrying someone I'm not crazy about. I want to fall madly in love, Uncle Kevin. You whine whenever I bring up the topic. Of course, I'm not proposing forced marriage, I tell you. That's barbaric. Always was, always will be. Then you say, love, attraction, romance. That's the way it's supposed to work. Is it? Listen closely, you are a product of your culture. If you lived at any other point in history, and if you lived in a more traditional culture, many of which are alive and well today, you wouldn't be trolling the internet or going to bars to find a mate. You'd be thanking your lucky stars you had mom, grandma, or auntie to find you a partner who was worth your while instead of you, all hopped up on hormones, making stupid decisions that will cost you for the rest of your life. We're talking about the person with whom you're going to share the rest of your life. You can't afford to screw that up. I'm not going to say that I think arranged marriages are the only way to go. They're not. I'm just saying that at least when an entire family is vetting your potential partner, there's a better chance that a tragic oversight isn't made. Love, as we all know, is blind, but mom, grandma, and auntie have 6 scrutinizing eyes between them, and they have very good reasons not to let a loser or a leech into the family. I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that I think arranged marriage can often work. I'm not talking about forced marriage, where one or both partners are unduly or totally coerced. I'm talking about consenting adults who've met through familial arrangements where the best interests of all parties factor into the partnership. It may sound crazy, but often your parents and relatives are the people who are best equipped to help you make this all-important decision. Hold it right there, Mr. Wonderful, you say. Arranged marriage is politically incorrect. It's a throwback to a time of barbarians. At which point, I'd suggest you look at the statistics. The U.S. national divorce rate is 40%. The average global divorce rate of arranged marriages is 4%. All I'm suggesting here is that it's possible that the divorce rate in arranged marriages is lower because those entering into that agreement have entered with awareness and due diligence. Why should this matter to you? Why is Uncle Kevin suddenly hellbent on matchmaking? I'm not. I'll leave that to Auntie. But I am interested in helping you make and keep your money, and there is no greater threat to your family dynasty than divorce. If you want to get married, it should be your topmost priority to stay married. I don't care who you are, the financial damage, not to mention emotional damage, you will incur from a divorce is colossal. Linda and I in August 2006 at a friend's wedding in Nassau, Bahamas. I was coming out of a 3-year retirement and just starting to dabble in a new hobby, television. Life is full of serendipity. You never know what will be just around the corner. We like to think of ourselves as advanced and savvy, a far cry from our forebears. So how, with all our education, our so-called experts and our libraries full of self-help books on healthy relationships, are we failing at marriage? Is it possible that when we try to find a partner in a vacuum, stripped out of any larger social context and without the involvement of our families, we are doing it wrong? Not only is it possible, it's true. I'm going to let you in on a little secret. The main reason a marriage breaks up is not infidelity. With hard work, forgiveness, and reprioritizing, that can be survived. The real threat to marriage is poor money management or a lack of funds. Not having enough of it, not agreeing on how to manage it, spending too much, saving too little, it's almost always about money. You want a marriage that will last? Then you had better make sure your partner speaks the same money language. You had better make sure you have money at the beginning of your marriage, and, this part is non-negotiable, that you have a good deal more of it by the end. One divorce can destroy everything you've built, costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not millions. It is absolutely essential that your partnership runs smoothly right out of the gate. But maybe you're one of the idealistic lovebirds who think they can have it all. You want a storybook romance, but you're also smart with your money and have no intention of making a stupid decision that you'll be paying for the rest of your life. You're determined not to let your parents meddle in your love life because you're convinced you are fully capable of finding a sizzling romantic partner with whom you can also build a sizable financial dynasty. As far as you're concerned, that's what marriage is. Uncle Kevin, you cry, I don't care if she's poor, I love her. Fine. Be a sap, if you must. But find someone who will participate in your financial future and enlist them in every step of the process. If you are missing the money piece, you are making a huge mistake, and you need help. Lucky for you, Uncle Kevin is here. Money mistake, you're missing the money piece of finding a mate. The fix, outsource it. In many cultures, the matchmaker has always been a highly respected member of the community. In Japan, the Nakodo acts as a go-between, and in China, people pay tribute to No-Gwa, the goddess of matchmakers. Matchmaking has a long, illustrious history, and I'm not the first to suggest that they kind of had it right. Traditionally, matchmakers work alongside the parents and relatives on both sides to ensure a strong, lasting union. As your matchmaker, I'm going to dispense some invaluable money advice, but I'm also going to suggest that, if you trust your family, you enlist their help. After all, these are the people who know you best. Remember how I told you to make the relationship due diligence checklist a mandatory part of dating? Now you don't have to, because your mother's going to do it for you. In an arranged marriage, your family and the matchmaker take care of the due diligence, and they do it long before you're even involved. They're going to get the dirt on your partner's family background, spending habits, and financial history. Connecting two families can be very powerful, so they have every reason to take their time and do a thorough check. They are looking for fundamental compatibility at every level. It's their job to find any red flags or potential deal breaker. What assets will be brought into the marriage? Is the debt? Are there long-term liabilities? Will this person be a good provider? Will he or she create stability in the home? Will he or she be a good parent? It goes both ways, of course. Just as the people on our side are vetting your potential mate, you, too, are being vetted. Your mother or aunt is working with her counterpart on the other side, and together they're taking a long, hard look at what each family will bring to this marriage and why they should or shouldn't endorse it. As a result, you're going to have a formidable infrastructure supporting you as you move forward in this relationship. That's unique. With a love match, you take on every bit of risk yourself. But with arranged marriage, someone else absorbs the risk for you. You'd be a fool not to take advantage of a system that has proven successful for thousands of years. Perhaps this is why arranged marriage is making a comeback in many cultures. Groups ranging from Southeast Asians to evangelical Christians have begun to adopt the practice. A recent article in the New York Times chronicled 3 American couples who had all been brought together by their families and one matchmaking service. Today, all 3 are happily married. These men and women were pleasantly surprised to discover they had fallen in love with their partners over time instead of overnight. At the end of the day, is matchmaking really all that different from your friend at work telling you she knows the perfect girl for you, and then the perfect girl becoming your perfect wife? If your parents are doing their job, they're not going to pick someone you detest. They're going to choose someone you would naturally fall in love with over time. They are seeking someone who will be a good match for you, a compatible partner who will also provide a lifetime of financial security. This is why modern matchmakers can charge a pretty penny. One upscale New York City matchmaking service charges clients between $500,000 and $500,000 to find the partner of their dreams. They've got access to a pre-screened dating pool. Online matchmaking sites profess to do the same thing, so people spend massive amounts of money to have a bunch of virtual matchmakers find them a match. My question is, why the hell aren't you using Auntie instead? She's way better at this, and she certainly knows you better than Match.com. I'm never going to convince you that love has no place in a marriage. If I did, I'd be a hypocrite. I certainly married Linda for love, and we found each other by chance, not through family. But regardless of how you find a mate, money matters. And arranged marriage is a time-tested approach that takes. Chapter 2. Establish your financial independence. I meet a lot of interesting people in television. Most of them are decent, well-intentioned men and women who are trying hard to provide for their families. But they haven't always made the best decisions. For some, one bad choice was enough to put them on the road to financial ruin. Katrina is a 40-year-old woman who immigrated to the U.S. as a teenager. She is intelligent and industrious, and as she told me her story, I was shocked that someone so bright could be in such serious financial trouble, all because of one crucial mistake. Katrina had gone to college, studied hard, and was working as a teacher when she met Raj, her husband, through an arranged match. Raj was a charismatic young man and an up-and-coming engineer. The two hit it off immediately. It took some time for Raj to pass due diligence with Katrina's family. Her mother was concerned that he was in his mid-20s and had not amassed much in the way of savings, but eventually both families gave the relationship the green light. Raj and Katrina worked hard during the first years of their marriage to save money and invest wisely. Raj handled all the family finances, and little by little, their dynasty began to grow. 6 years later, they were ready to start a family. Because Raj had greater earning potential, they decided he would continue to work while she would stay at home with the children. Before long, Katrina had her hands full raising 3 rambunctious boys. She took care of the house and found immense joy in being a mother, and Raj continued managing the family finances as he had always done. Everything was going well until it wasn't. Something Katrina had always loved about Raj was his ability to dream big and get excited about things. But Raj's enthusiasm came at a cost. He was constantly coming up with ideas for striking it rich with some harebrained business scheme. Katrina had always been the more practical partner. In the beginning, she was able to talk him down from his get-rich-quick delusions. But as she became increasingly involved with the kids, she lost track of what her husband was doing with their money. Unbeknownst to her, Raj had made some very bad investments. It started when he bought some risky stock. One of the guys at work was going on and on about a mining company in Chile that was about to hit it big. He told Raj he'd be a fool not to invest. Never wanting to miss out on a good thing, Raj siphoned some money out of the couple's joint account. When Katrina noticed something awry on the bank statements, he lied and told her he'd needed the money to buy some materials for work. He got angry and accused her of not trusting him, so she swallowed his misgivings and said nothing. A few years later, he suggested they move into a bigger house. Katrina was skeptical, but Raj assured her he had done the math and that they could afford the increased mortgage payments and corresponding costs. She wanted to ask how they could afford it. Raj hadn't been given a raise in 5 years, but she bit her tongue, trying, as always, to be supportive. When they missed a house payment, she asked if she could go with him the next time he saw their financial advisor. He scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous, Kat. We can't afford to pay a babysitter for the kids just so you can keep an eye on me. That's fiscally irresponsible." So Katrina was silent. The couple started to bleed money. One day, Katrina couldn't buy groceries because the credit card had been maxed out. She tried the debit card and it, too, was declined. She drove home in a daze, her kids screaming in the back seat. When she arrived home, she went to the family computer and tried to log into the bank account she shared with Raj. Then she realized she didn't know the password. She had never needed it before because her husband handled all of their accounts. Katrina had no relationship whatsoever with their financial institution. And because Raj had never let her go with him to see their CPA or financial advisor, she didn't even know their names. But that wasn't the worst thing, Kevin, she told me, her face grave. For as long as we have been married, we have filed a joint tax return. It has been over a decade since I made my own income, but I always signed my name to the return. This year, Raj was found to owe $45,000 in back taxes. Every piece of furniture we own, our car, our home, it was all purchased with Raj's income. That means they can take it all away from us. And I am liable as well. I wanted to tell Katrina that her husband's bad money management wouldn't affect her. But unfortunately, I could not. She was right. Both Raj and Katrina were on the hook for $45,000. The Internal Revenue Service could go after them however they pleased. And when money owed to the IRS went into collections, I knew what would happen. They'd stop at nothing to get it. They might freeze the couple's bank accounts, seize the car or the house, or even harass Katrina with phone calls and visits while her husband was at work. What was Katrina's crucial mistake? You might say marrying Raj, and I wouldn't argue with you. But really, this wasn't the main mistake. Enough due diligence had been done by Katrina and her family to investigate Raj's financial past. It was his future that had become the problem. Katrina's mistake came after she was married. She allowed herself to become disenfranchised from the family dynasty and from knowledge of the family coffers. She let Raj make every single decision pertaining to money, and unfortunately for their whole family, he made some lousy ones. You must be financially aware before you're married, and during it, you can't afford not to be. I don't care how capable you think your spouse is, you can lose everything in an instant if he or she screws up. Katrina was behind the scenes, working hard to keep the family happy and healthy while her husband was out losing every cent of their hard-earned money. Had Katrina carved out her own business relationship with an independent financial advisor, she would have been able to protect herself and her kids. She might even have been able to steer Raj away from some very poor money decisions. Money mistake: you don't have your own financial advisor. The fix: get one, stat. In my last book, I talked about your secret 10. That's the 10% of your income that you're putting away and saving for later. I encouraged you to start saving that money when you're still a kid and to keep growing it after you get married. Protecting your secret 10 is the first step toward financial independence. But now I'm taking it a step further. What do you do with your secret 10 once it has grown into a substantial nest egg? How do you invest those funds? Simple. If you're not a financial expert yourself, you get help. You work alongside a qualified investment advisor who can put those funds to work for you. But Kevin, you say, we've already got an advisor. My husband, or wife, goes to see him all the time. If this were a test, you just failed it. You must have your own investment advisor. If you're married and you do not have an advisor independent of your partner, go out and find one this instant. Ideally, you came into your marriage with some money. It may have been a lot or a little, whatever you'd been setting aside for your secret 10. It is your job to ensure that money is being handled by an independent professional who is yours and yours alone. Don't entrust this job to anyone else. Think of it as your insurance policy. It shields you against financial disasters like the one Katrina experienced, and it protects you if you ever get divorced. A divorce is so much easier if you have your own advisor and your own funds. You'll be able to split your assets without missing a beat. This isn't just a safeguard in case of divorce. Financial independence is the bedrock of a healthy partnership. Think about it. Your partner is your equal, and a good relationship is built on a healthy system of checks and balances. We've already said that money is the number one reason why couples break up. Why on earth would you want to create an imbalance in such an important area? Being financially dependent on your partner is like playing with matches. You're both going to get burned. Instead, you would have your own accounts, your own relationships with financial institutions, and your own stocks and bonds, even if it's just a small amount. You are essentially creating your own financial infrastructure as a kind of safety net. My mother Georgette was an astute investor. She believed in keeping a close watch on her money. She would meet with her financial advisor often and would invest only in stocks and bonds with cash interest. She drilled into my head the mantra, never spend the principal, only the interest. Today, O'Leary Funds is built on this simple but effective principle. I wish more women would heed this advice. I think it's a tragedy that so many married women, even those with very successful careers, shy away from the family finances. LearnVest, a personal finance website tailored to women, recently published the results of a survey it commissioned of over 600 women ages 21 to 59. 90% of these women weren't sure how much money to invest or what type of investment accounts to open, and 84% lacked faith in their ability to set and meet specific financial benchmarks. If you're a woman reading this book, please break the trend. You don't have to go it alone. That's why you team up with a really good investment advisor who can steer you in the right direction. I'm here to tell you that you not only can do it, you must. I've said before that I believe women make better investors than men, and I stand by that. They tend to be more conservative than men. They're less risk-oriented. Women often have the ability to step back and take a more comprehensive and nuanced view. And yet, so often they are put in a position where they don't control the family's finances. That's a huge mistake. Ladies, you are not hurting your marriage by having your own accounts and advisors or by being money conscious. You're actually helping it. There's no need to be clandestine. Tell your partner what you're doing and why. All you're doing is forcing diversification. Trust me, that's a good thing. Once you're ready to work with a financial advisor, you'll need to decide whether to hire a planner or a broker. These aren't synonymous, they actually do two different things. Both have their merits. Financial planners come from a variety of backgrounds and offer a variety of services. They might be broker, too, or insurance agents, or practicing accountants. Some will look at your finances as a whole and work with you to define a plan to meet your goals. Others will only recommend the products they sell. A broker, short for broker-dealer, is in the business of buying and selling security stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and certain other investment products. With rare exceptions, brokers are members of the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority Incorporated, FINRA, and are regulated by the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC. The financial planning industry does not have its own regulating body. Instead, individual planners may be regulated in relation to other services they provide. For example, a financial planner who doubles as an accountant would be regulated by the Board of Accountancy in the state where she lives, whereas a planner who is also an investment advisor would answer to the SEC. My suggestion? If your spouse has a broker, get a financial planner. If your spouse has a financial planner, get a broker. If your husband has an account at the local bank, open your account elsewhere. Now you've got independence and diversification, the best of both worlds. At some point in your life, you have to pass the tipping point where you stop paying interest to others because you are in debt and you start collecting interest and dividends because you have begun to invest. Your nest egg and the income it provides are what you are going to live off when you get old and crusty. Investors are always asking me how they can avoid paying fees to have their investments managed. You can't. The investment advisory business is a multi-billion-dollar industry. None of the people in it work for free. If you elect to use a broker or financial planner, you should know with certainty that they are going to get paid a fee to perform their services. The key is to get your money's worth. A good investment advisor forces you to diversify your investments. Diversification is so important in investing, yet so many people suffer devastating losses by not implementing this simple strategy. You probably know someone who fell in love with a stock as they watched it soar in value and come to represent a large percentage of their net worth, only to ride it all the way back down as the company blew up. Remember Nortel? I made this very mistake in my early days as an investor, but I learned the hard way, and now I possess a steely discipline that is forged from the searing flames of experience. I have already shared with you in my first book some basic rules that have saved my portfolio many times over the last few decades. But here is a new and more complete summary of some of my investment philosophy. The O'Leary investment philosophy. 1. Never let a stock, bond, commodity, or any investment become more than 5% of your portfolio. 2. Never purchase a stock or bond that does not pay a dividend or interest. In the last 40 years, over 70% of stock market returns have come from dividends, not capital appreciation. Shareholders of RIM, the maker of BlackBerry smartphones, watched their stock rocket to the stratosphere, only to it crash down when he flew too close to the sun. RIM never returned a dime to shareholders from the day it went public because it never paid a dividend. Ironically, if RIM shareholders had abided by my rule, they would still have most of their capital gains because they would have kept selling the stock as it went over 5% of their portfolio. A good financial advisor would have forced that discipline on them. 3. Keep a balanced portfolio. For years, I have kept my investments approximately 50% in stocks and 50% in bonds. When markets get volatile, the bonds provide the stability and income one wants to ride out the storm. I sleep better at night with this 50-50 model. The problem is which stocks and bonds to buy and when to sell them. This is where a good investment advisor really earns his or her fees. For example, when interest rates are going down, it's good to own 10-year government bonds, but when rates are going up, you can get killed in long-duration bonds. In periods when rates are rising, it's generally good to own only short-duration bonds that mature in the near future or floating-rate ones that pay more interest as rates go up. Again, a good investment advisor will know this and will modify your portfolio accordingly. I have never been a good stock or bond picker. That's why I co-founded O'Leary Funds. Today, I use my own mutual fund to provide the diversity I need. I let the professional portfolio managers pick the stocks and bonds that I own, and I get a dividend and/or interest check every month. It makes me feel warm and fuzzy when I see that cash coming in. You don't have to buy O'Leary funds to acquire these benefits. There are many other good mutual funds available, run by terrific managers who know how to preserve and grow capital. What matters most is performance. A good investment advisor knows how to analyze mutual fund composition and performance and will help you make sound fund selections. So, now that you know the secret of sustainable investing, you have to decide whether you are prepared to execute these strategies yourself or use the services of an investment advisor. The cold hard truth is that most people are not good at managing their own money. They lack the skill, discipline, or time to get the job done. If you fall into this group, and most people do, you need to work with an advisor. 6 rules for finding a good financial advisor. Here are 6 rules that I know will help you find a good advisor. 1. Be prepared to meet and interview a lot of candidates. When it comes to choosing an investment advisor, don't rush. People who inherit large sums of money sometimes feel compelled to invest it all right away. If this happens to you, and I hope it does, slow down. Starting a relationship with an advisor is like getting married. You want to think it through. Meet with at least 5 advisors, preferably from different firms, before you make your decision. Ask your friends for recommendations. Don't be afraid to call advisors. Trust me when I say they can't wait to hear from you. Look for someone you feel comfortable with, who has a good track record of preserving capital and is willing to work within the guidelines you provide. 2. Do a background check. Don't be embarrassed to check out your advisor's credentials. Remember, it's your money we are talking about here. Going online makes it easy, since almost all stockbrokers and financial advisors can be researched using the North American Securities Administrators Association's database at nasaa.org. There are over 900,000 individuals in the database, located all across the United States. If you can't find your stockbroker or financial advisor in this database, it's a big red flag. 3. Choose an advisor with a proven track record. As the chairman of O'Leary Funds, I meet thousands of financial advisors and stockbrokers every year. I've met great advisors, male and female. What's most important is choosing someone you're comfortable with and are certain will do a good job. Very often, successful investment advisors form teams. This happens when their assets under management grow into the billions. You often find women on these teams because they are excellent at preserving capital and providing returns for their clients. I'm not saying women are always better advisors. All I'm saying is that many have proven track record of success in this industry, and if you've got a good team on your side, you're always going to be in a better position to gain. 4. Diversify advisors. 2. If you are a couple, never put both your accounts with the same advisor or financial services firm. You need to have your own relationship with an advisor, with no conflict of interest. Even if you never separate or divorce, the diversification that 2 accounts in 2 different firms provides is better than having all your family's money in one institution managed by the same person. 5. Understand return on capital versus return of capital. In order to get returns, advisors must take risks with your capital, But if they're taking excessive risk, you're not going to have your capital returned. Ask your advisor to show you a model portfolio and see what is in it. Does the portfolio have more than 5% in any one investment? Is it mostly comprised of 50% dividend-paying stock and 50% interest-bearing bonds? If so, that's a good start. Now ask for the advisor's track record to see how they have performed after fees. In most cases, you're going to be paying between 1 and 2% in fees on the money you ask your advisor to manage. If the advisor has been providing good performance and preserving capital simultaneously, it's worth it. 6. Monitor performance and fees. The institution that your investment advisor works for is going to send you a statement every month. Read it. You want to monitor 2 metrics. First, check to see that your capital is being preserved while you are being paid dividends and interest. Second, check that your advisor is sticking to the rules you both agreed to when you started working together. For example, has any holding in your portfolio grown over a 5% weighting, and are you still 50% in stocks and 50% in bonds? I recommend that you meet with your advisor at least twice a year to go over your portfolio in person, and never hesitate to pick up the phone and call if you have a question. That's service you're paying for. You follow these rules and you keep your spending within reason while you are retired, you will sleep with the comfort that your money will outlive you. This will guarantee that people will show up for the reading of your will. Money mistake: the house, boat, or vacation property is in your name. The fix: all assets should be jointly owned. While I strongly urge you to keep your own accounts and work with your own investment advisor, if you are married, I suggest doing exactly the opposite with regards to your assets. This is where you tag team it, especially with the big purchases. It is absolutely imperative when you and your partner buy a home that it be in both of your names. Never let your spouse tell you it's better if it's only in your name because of the liabilities of his or her job. For example, let's say your wife is in a high-risk profession. Maybe she's a plastic surgeon at perpetual risk of a medical malpractice suit. Together you find the perfect house, and she entreats you to put it in your name to keep the family's biggest asset safe. While she may be well-intentioned, it's not a smart move. You never want to get into a situation where only one of you is entitled to that asset. That goes for everything you own. All of your family assets should be purchased under joint ownership, including vacation properties, boats, and anything else you're buying. That way, there's no question of who gets what in the case of divorce. In the unfortunate event that you have to sell your assets, the proceeds will be split clean down the middle with fewer expensive legal fees to prove who owns what. Money mistake: your family assets aren't protected from external forces. The fix: form a trust. But Kevin, you say, what if my husband gets sued and we lose our home because it's in his name? My solution is simple: form a trust. A trust is a separate legal entity, much like a corporation in that it has its own trustees, its own benefactors and beneficiaries, and its own rules. Who gets to define those rules? You do. You determine how the trust will operate while you're alive and after you're gone. Then you put it in the hands of the trustees, ensuring that the assets remain out of your creditors' reach while still keeping them within your family's control. A trust can't be pierced by divorce or litigation. I've set up a bunch of different trusts for my family, the 1997 O'Leary family trust names Linda and the kids as beneficiaries, and then I did a separate one for just Savannah and Trevor. It's a great way to protect our family assets in perpetuity. Let's say you decide to create a trust for your children. You move the family home into the trust, defining the mandate and who will manage it. After that, it doesn't change for generations. Your home is sage. Another beautiful thing about putting your house into a trust is that it precludes a lot of messy family quarrels after you've passed away. Your siblings, kids, and stepkids can't fight for the assets. Even if they are beneficiaries of the trust, they don't have the right to dissolve it. Putting your house in a trust forces you to define exactly who gets what before there's a divorce or a death in the family. If you and your spouse get embroiled in a nasty custody battle someday, your assets will be protected. The trustees won't get emotional about who did what to whom. Their job is simply to follow the rules you and your partner mutually agreed on from the get-go. I don't care how much money you've got, putting your home into a trust is a great way to protect your biggest asset. It's an excellent tool for the family dynasty because it forces you to have a healthy discussion about what could and should happen down the road. A trust makes you deal with the future today. There are other strategies for protecting your assets, so you'll want to consult your lawyer and/or financial advisor about the options available to you. Again, it's all a matter of being financially aware the minute you're married, and preferably long before. Money mistake: you think you and your partner are exempt because you're different. The fix: same-sex and live-in partnerships, same rules apply. Everything I'm saying goes for same-sex and cohabitating couples as well. Keep your money safe, no matter whom you shack up with. Whether you get married in a church, a courthouse, or on the island of Tahiti, whether you get hitched to a man or a woman, whether your marriage license could be revoked any minute by the fickle arm of the law or you don't even have one, the financial implications are identical. Each person in the relationship should have his or her own bank account and his or her independent financial advisor. If you're building a life together, build it together financial dynasty and put assets in both of your names. That's the tie that binds. Build your partnership the way you'd build a business, with sound financial decisions and investments of both money and time. Why not make your collaboration financial? After all, you're partners. The more you have invested in staying together, figuratively and financially, the harder it will be to separate. This doesn't minimize your marriage, it actually helps strengthen it. And it doesn't mean you are dependent or codependent. What you're trying to establish is interdependence, where you both have equal but separate financial identities. If you structure your partnership in this way, you'll honor your commitment to one another by focusing on what really matters, finding lasting financial freedom. I started this chapter by telling you about Katrina, who, 2 years later, is still trying to dig herself and her children out of debt. I'd like to end it by telling you a very different tale, the story of a woman I met on Shark Tank who is the polar opposite of disenfranchised. Esther immigrated from China 15 years ago with her husband, Ed. She's always had a head for numbers. In fact, the couple decided early on that Esther would handle the family finances, because even Ed knew she was far better with money than he was. It was Esther who started the arduous process of applying to immigrate to the United States while she and Ed were living in Shanghai, and thanks to her diligence, she and Ed were eventually approved to move to Chicago and start a new life. They met the challenge with gusto, working a variety of jobs, most of which they were overqualified for, to save money. Their work ethic was tremendous, and they made many personal sacrifices to amass a bit of cash, including living in a one-room apartment. Esther counted every penny going in and every penny going out. In 6 months, they had paid off the loan they had taken out to finance their move. 6 months after that, the couple had accrued a small nest egg. Esther watched with pleasure as the money in their accounts began to grow. That's right, accounts. Plural. Esther had always had her own money. She had brought it from China, and as soon as she and Ed arrived in America, she wasted no time setting up her own account. There was the joint account she shared with Ed, of course, which she monitored closely, but 10% of the money she earned went into a separate account that was hers alone. As their savings grew, Ed made an appointment with an investment advisor to start building a portfolio. Esther made an appointment, too, with a different advisor. She ultimately interviewed 3 advisors before settling on one she liked, a woman named Beth. Beth's investment strategy made a lot of sense to Esther, and it centered on 2 points: be conservative and diversify. Under Beth's guidance, Esther's investment portfolio began to prosper. During Ed and Esther's 5th year in Chicago, Esther became pregnant. At the same time, they were presented with a unique business opportunity to purchase a traditional Chinese bakery. They spent many days weighing the pros and cons, discussing it with one another and with their independent advisors. To their delight, their scrupulous saving and judicious investing had paid off. They were able to sell some stocks to get the liquidity they needed to make a down payment. The couple agreed to buy the bakery under 2 conditions. They would make the purchase under a joint ownership, and Esther would continue to handle the finances. They would approach the business the same way they had always approached their marriage. Esther would keep the books and monitor the cash flow to ensure the business was profitable. During those early months of running the business, Esther would often bring the crib into the office and balance the books at night while her newborn slept. The bakery, whose sales had been flagging under the prior owner, began to flourish under the watchful eyes of both husband and wife. They understood their market, and they catered to it wisely. By the company's 3rd year, they could boast almost $1 million in sales. By the 5th year, that figure had more than doubled. Esther and Ed split the profits 50-50. They each got 50 cents of every dollar. In other words, they got rich, separately and together. Because they were able to bring other family members to Chicago to help grow the business. Esther brought her mother over from China to provide childcare for their blossoming family. By this point, she had 2 young children. Ed brought his brother, who was a master pastry chef, back home. With his help, the bakery got write-ups in several newspapers and food blogs, bringing more attention to them and their products. By the time I met Esther, the bakery was a smash hit. She and Ed had opened 2 additional locations in Chicago and were seeking capital to expand into other cities. I looked at the cash flow and was blown away. Needless to say, I was very interested in their business plan. I asked Esther how she did it, how she never failed to make smart financial choices that catapulted her and her husband from rags to riches in a little over a decade. Financial independence for both partners, in perpetuity, she told me, with a sly smile. Isn't that the way? Esther didn't need me to give her advice. She was money-wise all on her own. In fact, she was financially aware the minute she got married, and every minute since. Best of all, she used her money smarts to strengthen her partnership with Ed. They didn't just build a marriage. They built a family dynasty that will provide security and happiness for many years to come. Quiz: are you financially independent in your marriage? Whose story sounds most like yours, Katrina's or Esther's? My goal is to help you move toward Esther on the financial independence spectrum. To figure out exactly how independent or dependent you are, try the quiz below. 1. Do you have a separate savings and/or checking account from your partner or spouse? 2. Are you aware of the various financial products available to you, and have you invested diversely across stocks, bonds, and mutual funds? 3. Do you have an independent investment advisor managing only your portfolio, separate from your partner's? 4. Are your family assets purchased under a joint ownership? This includes your house, vacation properties, boats, recreational vehicles, and any equipment or property you own for the family business. 5. If your spouse runs a family business, is he or she valuating your contribution? I mean that quite literally. You should be making a percentage of every dollar your spouse makes in the business, and if you contribute equally, that percentage should be equal, too. Even if you've been a homemaker for the past 30 years, you've been making a huge contribution to the family dynasty, and you deserve to be paid for it. If you answered yes to most of these questions, hats off to you. You are achieving financial independence. But don't get complacent. I encourage you to continue to seek diversification in your portfolio and work alongside your partner to keep building your financial dynasty. If you've answered a mix of yes and no, you've got some work to do when it comes to protecting your financial future. As of right now, your financial independence is not secure. If you have your own investment advisor, schedule a review to see what could be improved. If you don't have your own advisor, hire one. If you answered mostly no to these questions, you may be heading into a financial catastrophe. The good news, it's not too late to avert it. Set up an appointment today with a financial advisor and investigate the options that are available to you. Knowledge is a powerful tool. The only one who can rescue you from financial dependency is you. Chapter 3. Build the bedrock of your partnership. A strong financial foundation is the first step to building your family dynasty. So how do you construct one? We've talked about the big picture items: financial independence, joint ownership of assets, putting the family home into a trust. But how about the day-to-day? How do you and your partner shore up the bedrock of your partnership so that you can live the kind of life you want to live? The answer is easy: you plan for it. I once worked as a bricklayer. I'll tell you all about it in part 3 of this series, so I know a thing or two about building a structure that's made to last. Before you start laying bricks, you measure. You use a tape measure to determine the length and width of the wall, and then you stake out the size of it. You check and double-check your numbers, and when you're absolutely sure you've got it right, you stretch a string around the perimeter of the stakes so that you can dig out the area. All of this happens before you ever lay the first brick. Your partnership requires the same level of diligence. In fact, you must be even more diligent, because you aren't just building a wall, you're building an entire life. Setting financial goals, making a plan, and sticking to a budget are the mortar that will make a solid, good life possible. Though I advocate having separate accounts and separate investment advisor, you want to grow your financial dynasty together. In order for that to happen, you and your partner must have a clear idea of your current financial situation. In my last book, I showed you how to determine your 90-day number. This is the number you get when you add up every source of income you receive over a 3-month period and then subtract every expense you've got. This calculation is too important a step to skip, so I'm going to walk you through the process here. Below, I've included the 90-day number worksheet for men, women, and money. This time, I want you to complete the exercise with your partner. Money mistake: you don't know how much money you have. The fix: calculate your 90-day number. First, gather your pay stubs and your partner's. If you can't track them all down, pull up your bank statements from the last 3 months. Write down every source of income the two of you have. Don't forget about tax refunds, cash from side jobs, insurance rebates, reimbursements from friends and family, PayPal payments, alimony or child support, and any dividend or interest earned from your investments. We've not tabulating your assets, so leave out your car and home mortgage. Right now, we're only concerned with your incoming cash flow. If it's liquid, jot it down. The sum of these numbers is your 90-day input number. Now write down everything you spend money on, including rent, mortgage payment, utilities, insurance, and other big-ticket items. I mean every coffee and bag of chips you've bought over the last 90 days. Haircuts, magazines, donations, gasoline, groceries, dinners out, travel expenses, smartphone apps, valet parking, the sleek new pair of shoes, every single thing. If you keep your checkbook balanced perfect, use it to track your expenditures. Don't leave anything out. The more honest the two of you are, the more you stand to gain from this exercise. The sum of these numbers is your 90-day output number. Here's where the rubber meets the road. Take your 90-day output number and subtract it from your 90-day input number. You're left with a cold hard number that's going to tell you a lot about the state of your finances. This is a way for you to take your financial temperature and determine your next steps. If your 90-day number is positive, you're making money and building wealth. Well done. If your 90-day number is in the red, you're in deep trouble. Listen carefully to Uncle Kevin, because things are about to get very bad if you don't. It's time to declare an official state of emergency. Downsize where you live. Move closer to where you work. Eliminate the car you can't afford. Stop taking vacations. You are on a path to financial ruin, and horrible things are going to happen to you if you don't make a change. You need this book very badly. Do not go out to dinner, and do not stop reading. The only thing you are allowed to spend money on is another copy of this book for your spouse. Here's the good news: if you work hard to make up the deficit, you can regain your footing. It's not too late. Correct your bad spending habits now, and you can still build a strong family dynasty. But you have to adjust immediately so that, by the time you calculate your number in another 90 days, you're back in the black. I meet a lot of young couples on Shark Tank, many of whom are just starting out. Almost every single one of them is in debt. Many have bought a house together, and now they're saddled with a mortgage while still paying off their student loans. These kids have barely begun their life together, and already they are struggling under the weight of thousands of dollars of debt. I'll give you the same advice I give these couples. Right now, you have only 2 financial goals: get out of debt and pay off your mortgage, and keep putting 10% of your income into your secret 10. Money mistake: you're bleeding money left and right. The fix: honor the 90 to 10 rule. I call this the 90-10 rule. For every dollar you earn, 90 cents should go to paying off debt, and 10 cents should go to your secret 10. The 90-10 rule supersedes everything until you've paid off all your debt. You don't travel. You don't buy a fancy sports car. You don't give to charity. You shouldn't even have an investment portfolio unless that's where you put your secret 10. My dissenters say my strategy is too myopic. You can't really expect people to put 90 cents of every dollar toward their mortgage, Kevin, they say. Everybody needs to let off steam. Sure they do. So you better find ways to let off steam that doesn't involve spending money. Let me tell you why you should pay off your mortgage before doing anything else. The interest rate on a mortgage today is about 3.8%. That means you are guaranteed to make 3.8% simply by paying off a debt that costs you 3.8%. There is no other investment in the world that guarantees you a 3.8% return. Stocks and bonds are not guaranteed, as we discovered in 2008 when everything collapsed. They came back, but that's a lot of volatility. If you put all your money toward paying off your mortgage, there's no volatility and no risk. You are guaranteed a high rate of return. Plenty of people disagree with me. A lot of so-called gurus argue for diversification, advising people to put 2/3 of their money into stocks and bonds and devote the final third to paying off their mortgage. Controversial as it may be, I don't agree. Interest rates are only going to go up. As rates continue to increase, the argument for putting every penny toward your mortgage gets stronger. If a fixed mortgage goes up to 7 or 9%, good luck getting those kinds of returns with no risk and no volatility in the stock market. When you get a mortgage, you want to design it so that you can pay it off as soon as possible. Don't invest in anything until you've paid it off. Think of every mortgage payment as an investment in your debt-free future. The remaining 10 cents should go toward your secret 10. It's a tax like any other, but it's the only tax in your life that you benefit from personally. The secret 10 is a tax just for you. It's also your catastrophe cash fund. If disaster strikes and you need cash, you'll have it. That's what it's there for. How long will it take you to pay off your mortgage? Good question. Take a look at the following chart. Let's assume you owe $200,000 and you've got a fixed-rate mortgage at 3.8%. You took my advice from my second book and are making bi-weekly payments. Here's what you'll be paying over 4 different amortization periods, including the total interest you'll accrue. Paying off your mortgage. If you can pay off your mortgage in 5 years instead of 10, you'll save over $20,000 in interest. If you can pay off your mortgage in 5 years instead of 20, you'll save more than $65,000. That's a big difference. And the sooner you pay it off, the sooner you can dispense with the 90-10 rule and save your money for other goals and even spend a little, too. Money mistake, you can't afford a vacation. The fix, invest time without the money. You've got no business taking luxurious vacations until you've dug yourselves out of debt. In the early days of your marriage, extravagant trips will only sink you into more debt, which can seriously undermine your partnership. You don't want that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't go on vacations. There are plenty of ways to create special memories with one another without plunging into debt. Flip to the end of this chapter for some ideas. One of the most fruitful ways of investing time in one another is to take a few days away and do something special, just the two of you. I like to say there are two types of vacations. First is the Phase 1 vacation. This is the romantic tryst, the adventures you have together before you have children. You are building a history, replete with fond recollections and nice photographs. The hope is that, the more of these memories you've accrued, the harder it will be to walk away from all the rich history you've built together. The minute your first child is born, it all changes. From now on, you bring your kids with you wherever you go. That means you're going to Disneyland and Six Flags and all the other money pits designed to put a sparkle in your child's eye and take the money from your wallet. But you'll do it because, by the time you're planning a Phase 2 vacation, you're building the foundation of your family, not just your relationship with your spouse. Children remember vacations and summer sojourns in a special way. Time spent together is a smart investment. It makes your relationship with your kids stronger, fortifying your family as a result. As your children get older, it gets harder to keep the family together, particularly on vacations. New relationships outside of the family are an important part of growing up. One way to keep everybody together is to invite friends along. Here we are on a vacation in the Caribbean with my daughter, Savannah, and her friend. It might cost more, but it's worth it. Money mistake, you want to have a bunch of kids. The fix, have only as many as you can afford. I'll say this until I'm blue in the face, there is no need to enter into a marriage contract if you don't want kids. If this describes you, you will probably want to skip over the next part of this series because the information won't apply. But if you're like most people I know, your family dynasty is going to include one or more children. The question then becomes, how many should you have? You may not like the answer, but here it is, have only as many children as your income can support. Nobody wants to be told how many kids they should or shouldn't have. And yet those same people often come to me, wanting my advice on how to raise healthy, brilliant children into a world of opportunity that simply doesn't exist unless you, the parents, create it. But Kevin, they say, there is no greater joy than children. I agree. This is why you deserve to give the ones you've got the absolute best shot at life. In today's world, having a whole bunch of kids may not be realistic. Moreover, it may not be fair because it overtaxes your family's resources. You must balance the joys of having multiple children with the fact that those children could be living close to the poverty line as a result of your decisions. People tend to think of children outside of the metrics of money. Most prospective parents don't take a realistic look at their budget and decide, yes, let's have a third child, or you know what? Let's not. For parents who actually choose to have children, who plan to have them, this decision usually comes from an emotional place. But what I am suggesting is having at least a few thoughts where you separate the decision to have children from the emotional need to have children. At least try to think logically about your finances instead of just heading blindly toward dividing the family's resources between more and more mouths. The more children you have, the less they have, the less money, possibly less experiences and advantages, maybe even fewer educational opportunities. And, let's not forget, more children means less of your time because you're busy with all the other kids and the multiple jobs you're juggling to try to keep food on the table. For every new child that shows up, you are taking a percentage of time and money away from the ones who already exist. This is why large families are a luxury of those with means. In families that suffer from severe financial burdens, having more kids does not lighten those burdens. On the contrary, your children may inherit the burden. That's right. Instead of leaving your children an inheritance, you may actually leave them the burden of your debt. The faster my businesses grew, the more time I spent away from home. I decided one day that no matter what happened with work, I would always spend my weekends with my kids and wife. Here I am enjoying some bubbly with Trevor and Savannah when they were young. Families that are under deep economic stress encounter big problems when kids factor into the mix. Years into your marriage, you may find that cracks in the foundation of your partnership begin to show in new and ugly ways. If your relationship was founded on poor financial planning and mismanaged money, and if your decision to have a whole brood came from a purely emotional place, rather than being carefully thought out and prepared for, your kids may be the ones who pay the price. So how many kids can you afford to have? It's a simple math equation. According to CNN Money, it costs $241,080 to raise a child to age 18. That's roughly $1,116 a month per child. That includes almost everything: food, clothes, medical and dental costs, school, extracurriculars, transportation costs, and even braces. Now that you've got the numbers staring you in the face, there's really no excuse for poor decisions. For your future children's sake, if not your own, take a calm, rational look at your finances and ask yourself, can we afford it? Here's where the worksheets I had you complete earlier come back into play. The number of kids you have must be tied to your annual surplus. That's your 90-day number times 4. To make it easy, I've provided a chart below stating the annual surplus needed for 1 to 5 children. One child, $13,293. 2 children, $26,786. 3 children, $40,179. 4 children, $53,572. 5 children, $66,965. Keep in mind that these numbers do not include college tuition. If you want to send your child to college, you're looking at anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 for a 4-year degree, according to the U.S. Department of Education. Thanks to inflation, that figure will go up significantly over the next 18 years. Between 2001 and 2011, prices for undergraduate tuition, room, and board at public institutions rose a staggering 42%, while prices at private not-for-profit institutions rose 31%, both adjusted for inflation. If your wee one is still in swaddling clothes, you should know that the cost of tuition, room, and board could triple by the time he or she is college-bound. You may think your children are going to take care of you in your old age, and this is a justification many people offer for having children. But many kids are too busy living their own lives, hence the surge of retirement homes and long-term care facilities, and don't have the time or means to take care of their elders. You cannot count on your kids as a security blanket for your own future. The sooner you can get that idea through your head, the better off you'll be. Frankly, unless you're rolling in cash, I endorse having only 2 kids. I'm biased, of course, since I've got 2 great kids myself. Having more than 2 children becomes a financial risk with a good chance of failure. Your children will carry on your financial legacy, for better or for worse, so why not give them the best chance possible at success? I took this picture of my daughter, Savannah, and Linda one sunny morning in Boston. I remember looking through the viewfinder and thinking about how much my life was about to change and what new responsibilities were to come. Planning on having a family? You need to think through the financial implications in tandem with the emotional ones. Money mistake: you've bought into traditional wisdom about who works and who stays home. The fix: follow the dollar signs. I want to comment briefly on the traditional roles of breadwinner and stay-at-home parent, since we're talking about tying the number of kids you have to your income. For years, it was the father who often went out and earned a living while the mother stayed home to raise the kids. Women were relegated to the domestic realm while men worked their way up the corporate ladder, earning promotions and bigger paychecks. To this day, studies show that a woman in the workplace earns an average of 77 cents to a man's dollar. But that's not the whole story. Many women today have successful, lucrative careers. A recent Pew report found that 4 in 10 households with children have a woman as the primary breadwinner, and sometimes she is the sole breadwinner. 50 years ago, that statistic was 1 in 10. Single mothers account for many of those households today, but in over 5 million cases, the couple is married. The wife simply makes more than her husband. I point this out for a reason, so that you don't get stymied by conventional expectations. Whoever can make money and wants to work should do it. At the beginning of your marriage, you're in the maximum debt. You may both be paying off your student loans, and now you have a mortgage and a baby. You want to make your 90-day number as high as you can possibly get it. If you decide to have kids, take a cold hard look at the numbers. Who has the higher earning potential? That's who goes to work. The other one works to care for the children and the house. If that means mom goes to the office while dad stays with the baby, so be it. Husbands, don't be threatened by your wife's earning potential. Embrace it. The money she brings home every month will shore up your financial foundation and strengthen your partnership. Wives, if you want to work, go for it. And if you want to be a working mother, do it. At no previous point in history have so many women enjoyed motherhood and successful careers. Strike a balance that's right for you. For affordable Phase 1 vacation. Phase 1 vacations, the trips you go on before you have kids, are part of the brick and mortar of a healthy partnership. The memories you make will sustain you over the coming decades. But during the early years, your goal should be to save money, not spend it. Here are 4 affordable vacation ideas that put a premium on the time you spend together, not the money. 1. Visit a national park. There's something majestic about being with the person you love in the wilderness. It's a chance to break out of the daily grind, unplug your smartphone, and soak up the wonders of nature. Plus, it's cheap. Tent and RV camping can save you thousands on room and board. If you plan your vacation carefully, you can even swing free admission. Most national parks never charge an entrance fee, and the National Park Service designates a handful of free entry days for the ones that do. Check out www.nps.gov for details. Bonus: without running water and modern creature comforts, you and your partner can't help but develop a deeper, and potentially smellier, bond. 2. Hit the road, but not too far. Everybody loves a good road trip. To save on gas, consider choosing a nearby destination, and be sure to check gasbuddy.com to find the cheapest price. To save on lodging, see if anyone you know will be going on their own vacation and might volunteer to let you stay in their house while they're gone. Subletting has all the appeal of a hotel. You're someplace new and exotic, with more of the little luxuries you're used to, a working coffee maker, couches you can actually sit on. Early on in our relationship, Linda and I flew to California, rented a car, and drove through Napa Valley on a wine tour. One of my venture capitalist friends had a gorgeous place in Sonoma and let us have it for the week. Linda and I still talk fondly about that trip. Bonus, more time in the car means more time to talk about the future. 3. Revamp a business trip. If your company sends you somewhere interesting, that's half the fare paid for. You can't expect work to pick up the tab for your partner's meal, but consider tacking on some vacation time before or after your trip and having your spouse meet you once your business duties are over. To this day, Linda often accompanies me on business trips. She'll come with me to Los Angeles when I'm filming Shark Tank. During the day, she gets to do her own thing, and at night we enjoy all that the city has to offer. Bonus, when you're on a business trip, many of the extras are tax deductible for you, not for your spouse, so be sure to keep all your receipts and talk to your accountant about itemizing deductions. 4. Have a staycation. A staycation is just a vacation where you stay at home. Simply use your place as a home base for local adventures. Go pick blackberries, check out a museum exhibit you've been wanting to see, or attend a nearby music festival. Back home at night, kick back, have a glass of wine, and unwind. To get the most out of your staycation, turn off the ringer on your phone and set a vacation alert on your email accounts. Don't read or watch the news. You're on vacation. No one even has to know you're still in town. Bonus, enjoy being with your partner in the comfort of your own home, without the normal daily stresses. You've got everything you need. Read more about strengthening your family dynasty and avoiding common money mistakes in Part 3 of Cold Hard Truth on Family, Kids, and Money. Cold Hard Truth on Kids and Money.